I've started to advocate for myself pretty hard in the rooms because I'm about dignity. I'm not interested in just saying yes for the sake of saying yes.
Yeah.
I'm interested in going in and being seen as someone who can contribute, as a collaborator. We all just want to get paid and do the thing that we like to do. I have this motto in my life where I'm like, it's either like relationship or like living wage. Ultimately, these people are not getting the role because it's already been cast.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lower myself to be in a situation where people treat me like crap in the thing that I love to do. I think if I was to go back and speak to myself, it would have been like, focus on the relationships that you have with people.
Yeah.
Don't focus on building the resume. Focus on the relationships that you have.
Oh, I like that.
Because I think the relationships are what have seen me through.
Before we start the interview, if you could hit that subscribe button, it would help us out so much, and it costs you nothing. I wish that whole first part was recorded.
We could just rehab it.
What were we talking about?
Well, we were talking about like my relationship to social media, and I feel like, what I had said was I really like this idea of the suspension of disbelief that we've lost. Like this idea that like my job as an actor is to, I feel anyway, is to kind of like lose myself in the role and ultimately like take the audience on a journey where they forget that I'm a person outside of this.
Yeah.
And so I find my contention with social media sometimes is that like I feel the need to have to share a lot of my life in order to keep people interested in my art. And I think that feels strange because it's like, I just want people to be interested in the art I'm creating. I don't want people to know what I had for breakfast. I don't know how that, and I would say some people argue and go like, well, if I get to know you on that level, it's more relatable. And like by keeping a distance, how do I relate to you? But I'm like, I don't know if I need you to relate to me as an individual.
But the characters that you're playing.
As much as the art that I'm putting out or the characters that I'm playing or the projects that I'm supporting.
Right.
So I'm really starting to kind of grapple with this idea of like, how do I use social media effectively in a way as a business as opposed to like a personal diary?
Yeah. And it's not soul sucking.
Yeah.
It's so soul sucking sometimes. It's just energy draining when you feel like you have to do it.
Yeah.
So much.
Well, and like, wanting to enjoy my life without having to archive everything.
Yeah.
Like I think there's this like real pressure I experience sometimes of being like, oh, this cool thing happened and I have to archive it. As opposed to, I was recently at TIFF with my friend David Light, and we were in a movie called Sharp Corner with Ben Foster and Colby Smolder. And it was funny because, we're on the red carpet standing behind Sandra Oh, and like it's this like wild thing where you're like, I've been to TIFF many times, but it was David's first time, and we got so wrapped up in kind of the conversations that were happening or whatever that we didn't really take any photos. And the next day, David was like, oh man, like we looked so good, like we should have taken more photos, because Getty didn't take our photos, they took someone else's. So it was like this whole thing. And there was a part of me that kind of mourned that because I was like, we did look good and it was really, I had a really great time with David. But at the same time, I was like, who cares?
Yeah, that was our experience.
Yeah, that was our experience. Dave and I had a wonderful evening together. And like, that doesn't need to be shared with everyone. Do you know what I mean? And it was, there was like a couple moments where we were interviewed and like that did make it online. And like, so it's not like our outfits were not captured or whatever, but it really did make me reflect on the fact that I was like, what I remember from that night is having a great time with David. Not like, here was these amazing photos that got posted on Getty.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had Getty photos. It's cool, but I'm also like, then they just go down the river. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like.
Yeah, I find that all the time. Like, anytime my closest friends, I have the least amount of pictures with because we always forget to take photos with whenever we hang out.
Because you're present.
And then we leave. Yeah, because we're present. And then we leave. We're like, oh yeah, we probably should have. Looks like I don't hang out with my friends.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's an interesting time because I think there's so much value. And I think like, when I think of myself as a creator right now, as like an actor and a filmmaker, it's like I do find myself sitting in conversations where I'm like, well, what audience am I creating for? To like go through the process of trying to get like a feature film funded in today's Canadian landscape. I'm like, it's difficult. And then who's going to watch it? Like who's like, who's going to watch things at the theaters right now, especially an independent Canadian film for made less than, $250,000? Like,
Right.
what's the promotional budget for that? Who's actually going to go see it? It's not that I think that people should give up on that. It's just I'm asking myself those questions of like, I had a moment of virility last year where my friend Brian came in and like shot my apartment because I live in a small apartment, and cumulatively, like, that's gotten almost 10 million views across social media platforms. And it was this like weird thing where I was like, wow, like almost 10 million people have seen me inside my apartment. Like 10 million people have seen inside my apartment.
I have that when I take pictures outside. I'm like, people, those accounts that like take me or send me your account and I'll find out like who you are and where you live in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Every time I'm taking a selfie, I'm like, hey, what's in the back? Can you see that building?
Yeah.
Like, were they going to be able to tell where I am?
It's wild.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
And so not only was that experience like fun for Brian and I, but like it felt very like strange. I felt very disassociative about it because I was like, wow, like 10 million people now know that I'm an actor and live in this particular place in XYZ. And I'm like, I've never performed for that many people.
Yeah.
I don't think even like, I've been fortunate to be like series leads on TV shows and XYZ. And I'm like, I don't even think 10 million people have cumulatively watched all my work.
Yeah.
So the idea that a
Right.
1 minute video has been seen by almost 10 million people. And I'm like, and here we are making a feature
picture what 10 million people look like.
I know. It's a third of Canada has seen inside of my apartment.
That's so true.
It's wild.
That is wild.
And so it just makes me go like, I was talking to a mentor friend of mine and, I was like, why do you keep making features when you could potentially have 10 million people watch your piece of art on Instagram or TikTok?
Right.
And he was like, I'm invested in long form storytelling.
Yeah.
He's like, that's the way that I express myself.
Social media is the death
in.
of long form.
Yeah. But he then sacrifices audience.
Yeah.
Because again, who are the people who are going to watch that? And I watched him go through the process of that film losing funding and gaining funding and losing funding, and then the funding being contingent on like which celebrities he hires, even though maybe those people weren't the best people for the film. Do you know what I mean? In hindsight. And so it was this thing of like his baby that he was presenting ultimately had to be deformed in some way in order to like get the financing to then expose it to an audience that I don't know, will they appreciate it? I hope so. It's winning awards. It's like, it's a great film. But it is this like weird thing where I watch this tender person slave for 10 years making a feature film, trying to get funding for it, to then have maybe 1 million people watch it if you're lucky, if it sits on Air Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just an interesting place to be as an actor and creator, because it's like, yeah, make your own stuff, but like it's so oversaturated that how do you actually like cut through,
much.
Yeah. Issa Rae was doing something very specific when she cut through. Like Brian Jordan Alvarez was doing something very specific with Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo in 2016.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Now, like 6 years, 8 years later, it's this thing of like, okay, now he has English teacher, but like, because he made something very specific 8 years ago when YouTube was not YouTube in the same way.
Yeah.
Right? So it's this just like, I'm finding myself oscillating between these things of like, how far do we push into the creator economy? Because it seems to be like a way to make money. But lots of things can make money that aren't necessarily like expanding someone's artistry.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I digress. I think I'm just sitting in that place.
It's a weird, delicate balance. And I mean, it's going to be different with every single person, just like figuring out what is not fully draining you and what is like feeding the creativity. And then, and then the business side, because I've heard, I mean, we all have heard your social media is important and that kind of stuff. And I'm recently, very reluctantly, because I hate it, been like, yeah, that's so correct, of like, it does matter. Like if somebody's going to hire me, it's just, I look at it as there's so little in my control as far as like a creative career as a performer, that if I could get my numbers up audience-wise to help out production, then why wouldn't I do that? But at the same time, I don't want to just be sending out crap into the void just because, so it's, it is a weird balance of creating content without killing the creative.
Yeah, well, and I would say, like, I'm sure the, like, enthusiasts out there would be like, it's just for fun, it's silly, like, don't overthink it, it's just
but it takes up
dumb,
so
like,
much time
put it, just
sometimes.
like make a video and put it online, who cares? And I'm just like, I guess, like, if you get a lot of joy from doing that, absolutely do it.
Yeah,
but I would
that's
say,
the
like,
thing.
my personality isn't, like, I don't sit at home recording myself. Like, I would rather have an in-person conversation. It feels awkward for me to, like, even doing self-tapes, I enjoy them, but again, like, the part that I enjoy about it is collaborating with my reader.
Yeah.
Is being like, okay, what are we doing? Like, what are we working on?
Yes.
For me to just kind of, like, film something by myself in my room, like, for a commercial or whatever, it feels weird. Like, I'm like, this is so strange. It's like, I've, hummed and hawed about doing YouTube for a long time, but I'm like, I think the part that makes me go like, ugh, is I'm like, I don't want to sit by myself in my room and talk at a screen for X period of time and then edit that video and then upload it, and the only kind of interaction I get is comments.
Yeah.
I would rather this.
Rather have a full conversation.
I would rather talk to somebody in person.
That's what I felt about the podcast, just even doing it virtually versus in person.
Yeah.
Is like, I just like in person so much better than over. I mean, I'm not a fan of Zoom calls, to be honest.
Yeah, God,
I'll
who
do
is?
them. I mean,
I think that stuff is like, it's certainly changed business things for me. I mean, like, my mom lives with a disability, and so it's changed her job to, like, be able to do virtual things as opposed to needing to go in. So of course there's, like, benefits to those things, but I think, like, using anything in excess or as a reason to not leave the house if you can,
yeah.
I think it just gets dangerous.
Yeah.
I find moving into this period of my life, I crave human interaction more than anything else. Like, I would say that I spend most of my downtime just reaching out to friends, planning things, like trying to get stuff going, you know what I mean? Because it's about the relationships for me more than it is about the content.
Yeah.
Than about the getting stuff out. Like, when I get excited about a project, like, I'm working on a couple things right now, and it's like the like thing that I feel behind it is that it's not about, like, getting it out so I can share it. It's about, like, I want the momentum to continue so that we can keep having the conversation.
Yes.
Like, a short that I'm working on right now, like, I want me and my, like, DOP to keep jamming. Like, I'm excited for us to go into the color suite. Like, I'm excited for those things, as opposed to being like, hey guys, here's the next thing I'm working on. It's more just like, I want the conversation to continue.
Nice.
I want the communication to keep happening. And I think the easiest way for me to build relationships has been through working together, collaborating.
Yeah, 100%.
And so it feels quite isolating when I'm, like, trying to get people on board to something that I can't just be like, hey, hi, you should come. You should come, please come.
Yes. Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah. And I like events for that purpose. I don't like networking only because, well, no, I should rephrase. I like networking events that are friendly and it's a good vibe and you can tell.
Yeah.
I don't like the networking events that are like, oh, well, I've done this, and well, I've done this, and I worked with this actor, and I'm like, that's great, and I do want to celebrate everything, but I also like talking about the shit, like, thus the podcast. Yeah. I like talking about the stuff that goes wrong, but you did it anyway, or like the no's that you got that, like, made you cry, and then you continued on and stuff like that. Like, this whole pretending like you've been breezing through your career all perfectly needs to end.
Yeah, or I mean, what we were talking about before, this idea of also false vulnerability really pisses me off too. This kind of like, I'm going to curate my vulnerability, like, that feels strange in and of itself too.
Yeah.
I would rather someone just be like, this is honestly what's going on. There's like, I guess it's controversial, but I'm a big art lover, and Nan Golden is a photographer from, like, the 70s, 80s, and she has this picture where it's like, I think it's like self-portrait of, like, a battered woman, I think is maybe what it's called, but she was in a really toxic, violent relationship. And so there's this picture that she took of herself with this, like, bruised eye, and she looks awful. And she took it right after an assault. And it was this thing where I remember seeing that photo and being like, no one would post this on social media.
Yeah, 100%.
But she as a photographer was not on social media, but in the 70s and 80s, that was part of her gallery work, you know? And I'm like, that's an artist. That's someone who goes like, this is the real, and this is also the curated.
Yeah.
You know? And I think we're losing sight of what those things are. Like, I don't want and I mean, someone would go, but that's curated vulnerability too, because she's choosing the best photo that, like, you know, whatever. But I think there was something really raw and honest about specifically Nan Golden, you know, showing something like that, which is a self-awareness about her own relationship and the reality of how that could connect with other women who are experiencing that, you know, and using her art as a connection. So it's just hard. I find I think all of these things are tools, but I think right now it feels so heavily reliant on like marketing and selling things to people that I find myself really just suspicious of like what's real and what is not, you know, and what is just trying to get me to buy something and what is like actually trying to connect with me and change my life or make me think about something in a new way.
Help, like even the self-help people that sell their courses or come to my free seminar and then at the end they're selling their book or whatever. It's like there's no just helping for the sake of helping. It's always then, okay, we'll help you and then sign up for our course. And I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And is your course actually helpful, or is it just gonna be, you know, the first 5 videos I could search up on YouTube and just watch them from somebody else?
Totally. I have this motto in my life where I'm like, it's either like relationship or like living wage. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, for me, if I have a relationship with you, like, you know, if you and I have been friends for X period of time and we really like collaborating together, well, I'm going to give you a friend's discount, you know? And usually it's like, I'll just show up. It's fine. Like, let's just make it happen, you know, because I believe in you. You believe in me. We've built this personal relationship over a period of time. You've been there for me. I've been there for you emotionally. And then there's the moments where I'm like, I don't have a personal relationship with you. And so I'm going to offer you a living wage, you know, until we maybe establish a personal relationship. And then those kind of things, you know, become a little bit more loose, right? Because then it's like, oh, well, I've been in a hard spot with you. You've been in a hard spot with me. And not to say that I don't pay my friends. I certainly do. But it is this thing I find when I'm traversing new relationships, it's always this kind of like base minimum of like, I start to gauge whether I'm going to be like really good friends with that person or whether I'm going to just be like, hey, you have a skill set and you deserve to be compensated, but our relationship doesn't go beyond this kind of like working relationship, you know? And I think that is, I'm either investing emotionally or I'm investing financially. And I think when I look at those kind of buy my book, it's like, well, I'm not getting really like a emotional connection from you. And then you're giving me advice that I am a curious person and I could probably find. So what's the benefit, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm working with a gentleman right now and we're building a show. And, you know, we had a conversation yesterday because it's the end of our kind of first phase. And it was this thing where, you know, I feel weird about charging him in some way because I'm really enjoying getting to know him and his artist. You know, he's, you know, middle-aged and he's like never made theater before, like never made anything kind of like, you know, I would say like capital A artistic. He's been a very successful author and, you know, but like more in like a self-help kind of knowledge-based, you know, authorship. And so it's been really beautiful to share this time with him and, but it's been hard to be like, okay, like these are my rates. And then yesterday we just had this really frank conversation where I was like, I'm so enjoying this process and like, I really want to continue working with you, but I also have to be considerate of the fact that like you are paying me and I want to make sure that you have the financial resources to be able to continue to pay me for my time because this does take away from me being able to take other jobs.
Yes, exactly.
And so if I can't work other jobs to do this, then I do have to be compensated, and not because we're not establishing a relationship, just simply because at this level of our relationship, I don't know you yet, that I'm going to put in that extra labor. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm going to be like, here's what I can offer you and here's what this compensation looks like. And I do see us having a long-term relationship, but I do really appreciate that he's like, this is worth it for me. And I would be paying this money to someone else. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And so I think that that's a really interesting thing that I'm traversing right now is like someone that's kind of using my skill sets beyond just like, I audition for a role, I get the part, I go in and I do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, when you start to actually, or when I start to go, how do I truly ask for what I'm worth in these
It's
situations?
such a tricky conversation to have.
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah. Because it's necessary, but it's also nebulous, because I will easily go help out a friend for absolutely nothing because I love them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And it would not be conditional. You know? But if a stranger asks me to do something for them, I'm going to be like, well, how much do you got?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like it's a weird thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That's a good way to, I like that the way that you put that is the relationship or living wage. Yeah. I think I'm going to borrow that.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to talk about your training a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because you went to the National
Theater School.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. What was your experience like there?
I had a hard time there.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was one of, I think, 2 Nova Scotians to go that year. I mean, it's a very selective program. They only take 10 to 12 people a year for the acting program. So there's only like up to 35 actors in the whole school at one time.
Wow.
So it's very intimate, you know, everyone's kind of up in your grill and knows your business. And I would say me and a few of my classmates had a really hard time. It was, you know, I came from a really small town in Nova Scotia. I was a big fish in a little pond there. I was like very talented and like, you know, I worked really hard. And when I got to NTS, I was in a room full of other people that were also very good and worked very hard. And I became really, really hard on myself because I felt like I wasn't able to compete at the level that my classmates were operating. And we were a very competitive class. You know, we all wanted the best out of each other, and we were really hard on each other too. I think because we all saw how good we all were, but we were all kids. And so it was just this like really toxic kind of, you know, competitive spirit that was like kind of awful to each other sometimes. And I'm friends with all of them. And like, you know, we had a reunion earlier this year, and it was so much fun, and we're all adults and we can laugh about it, but it was really hard to go through at the time. I think the training was absolutely necessary. I think like I'm very grateful to have gone there, and I'm very grateful for the training that I did receive. But it was definitely during a time, it was, you know, it was before the Me Too movement. It was before kind of like queer, you know, not liberation, but like, you know, this kind of, I feel like socially conscious identity politics period of time. So I found myself really navigating patriarchal structure in like a really like scary way. I was one of the only, you know, I was navigating my queerness at the time, and I felt like I was the only person that was like really actively navigating my queerness during that time, and I felt really unsupported by a lot of the faculty, even though some of the faculty were very openly queer people. I felt like they were very focused on maintaining a, you know, straight and narrow, don't let people know, do this thing, like, you know, like this kind of weird homophobia, internalized homophobia. And so it was difficult. It was really difficult. It was also the first time I'd ever been in a big city, you know, and so there was just a lot of learning. And I'm very grateful to have, as I said, been there. But yeah, I think if I was to go back now, I would know exactly what I needed from a program like that. But at the time, it was just like you were exposed to so much, and I didn't have a strong enough sense of self to go, that doesn't serve me.
Yeah,
that actually doesn't serve me, because I had a lot of teachers that were just like, you're going to do this and you're going to not complain about it. And I would say now, if I was like protecting Wayne at that time, I'd be like, actually, you're not going to talk to him that way because I'm paying for my education. And I'm going to...
Facts.
Yeah, I'm going to, like, I'm paying the student loan off for 15 years.
Right.
So I'm going to do what I think is interesting for my artist.
Yes.
I'm not going to be bullied into doing something because you think it's interesting. And I think that was the thing. I think I had some classmates who certainly did that. And I think they had a better time because they were able to go like, nope, sorry, that doesn't serve me. I'm opting out. But yeah, it was, I didn't have that sense of self that I do now. So yeah, but I mean, it's one of the best schools in the country. It's one of the best training programs in the country. So my framework and my foundation of being a working artist is very strong. But interpersonally, it was very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. And I find too, like, I don't know, you're right. Like, it's just kind of like an age thing of just like, I learned that later, and it's a lot. Like, for my schooling, I feel like it wasn't fantastic, but I didn't have the maturity to put in. It's one of the, what you get out of it is what you put in.
Absolutely.
And I didn't have the maturity to put enough into it.
No.
So if I was to do it again, because shit was expensive, then I would totally do it differently.
Absolutely.
And sense of self, because it's a weird time. You're not even full. Your brain is barely fully developed.
Yeah.
So
and
you're
realistically,
still figuring everything out.
I had worked, like, I'd certainly worked professionally before I went to school. Like, I was working quite a bit in Halifax professionally, like in film and theater.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, like, my first professional contract, I remember the director, we would, like, sit down and do notes, and I would just sit there and receive the notes. And she was like, "Are you going to write these down?" And I'm like, "Why?"
I know, right?
She was like,
they're all up
so
in
that
here.
you remember the notes. And I was like, "Oh no, I'll remember it." And then, kid you not, we did the next thing, and she was like, "That was a note that I gave you that you didn't remember."
No
And
way.
I was like, "Oh." So it was like in those moments where I was like, I was still learning how to be part of the process.
Right.
So then to go to school and go like, I've worked, but I haven't been in a lot of like professional situations. Every professional situation I've been in was my first one.
Yeah.
It was just hard to be like, I knew I had a talent and I knew I had a voice, but it was so unmolded. It was kind of all instinct.
Yeah, just learning the new.
Yeah, how to be professional. And so now I feel like very professional, but at the same time, I'm trying to like bring back some of that instinct, that play, that kind of like
I find
rigor.
that with a lot of schooling, like especially the way you describe it, of teachers being like, you're going to do this, like whether you like it or not, and you arguing back with but it doesn't serve my art. There is, I find with schools, like, okay, so this is art and this is how we're going to do it. But everybody else is like, no, I want to do art like this. I want to do art like this. And they're like, no. This is how we do art. And that's it. And it doesn't leave room for new, real artistry. It's just like reading the same books, which is good for foundation, but I don't think it's good for creating new.
Well, and I think the delineation for me is that there is how to be at a workplace, and then there is how to be an artist.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I think like I needed to be taught how to be in a workplace and like show up and be prepared to come to work.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, if I'm in a rehearsal process, which is a workplace, how do I navigate personality? How do I show up and, honor my artist while also playing within the equity, rules and like signing my things and doing all that? Like, what is it to be at a table read in a professional context? What is it to like, not, if you're in a dramaturgical situation or a workshop, how do you speak about that? So I think those things are really important to know, because it's how to be in a workplace. But I think the danger that I experienced was that people tried to tell me what my artist was. And I was like, you don't know me.
Yeah.
You don't know what I'm interested in. You might see something in me and go, ooh, that could be explored more. And that's just pushing me. But I don't think that is telling me who I am. And I found at the start of my career, I had a lot of people telling me who they thought I was. And that was really hard on me because I was like, I guess that's what being a professional is having everyone tell you who you are and like being imposed upon, as opposed to being like, no, I know who I am and this is what I'm offering. And if it's not your taste, you can say that's not my taste.
Yeah.
But you don't get to tell me that I'm wrong for being who I am.
Exactly.
And I think that's been the transformation.
Very good way to put it.
Yeah.
Snaps for that. That's perfect. I wanted to talk a little bit about your resume. It feels like you've done the rite of passage Canadian TV shows like Murdoch Mysteries and What We Do in the Shadows and all that good fun stuff. Do you have a favorite on-set experience?
I mean, I would say like the first kind of big project I booked was this very limited series sci-fi show that got canceled immediately. But it was like the first time I felt like what my dream was, which was to be like, I shot that show for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? Like I like flew out to Vancouver. I was number 5 on the call sheet of like 438 people. Like I like got my own trailer. I like, you know, I mean, there was like, I also walked down the street every day along the highway to get to the, like to get
But you're
to
in
the
your trailer and you're like, I made it.
yeah, you know, like I had my own little whatever. And, but it was like also super young when I got it. I was playing this like 15-year-old like Greek prince. And like, it was just this very interesting thing where I felt like the journey that I went through on that set is probably one that I touch the most often in terms of like, I know what it's like to feel like I have power on set. I know what it's like to feel like my artist was being met. I also know what it was like to be challenged as an actor on that set.
Oh, nice.
I also know what it was like to the politics that go into those things, the like doing all the press and the backstage, like all of those things. So it felt like a really cohesive experience.
Oh, nice.
I mean, it was hard because I think I expected it to be bigger than it was, because in my delusion of like, I booked a show and
100%.
now I'm going to be on HBO.
This is it. Yeah, exactly.
You know?
This is the one.
Yeah.
The one call I needed.
Yeah, you know,
100%.
like it felt like the equivalent of booking Broadway, you
Yes.
know, and I was like, I'm going, it's happening, we're living it, it's happening.
Right.
And it did happen. And then it kind of fell into the ether like everything does. You know, but the whole time they were like, this is going to be nominated for Emmys, like this is the next like Game of Thrones. And then to watch the show afterwards, I was like, okay, I think people's expectations or like ideas around it were like a little too, you know, like it was actually quite campy and silly. And like, you know, I think the writing, you know, was good, but I don't know if the director had the budget to make it what he imagined it was in his brain.
Right.
And so things felt quite, you know, so it was hard. So I'd say like that's probably one of my like most often thought about experiences. I mean, like I'm looking forward to the next series that I get to book, you know, because yeah, like the day player stuff is hard because you're kind of being folded into a process that's already running. And having been a number 5 on a call sheet, I know what it's like for a day player to come in and you're like, hey, we have this one scene together, and like you want to like try to get some level of like, hey, how's it going? You know what I mean? Like doing What We Do in the Shadows last year, like was, you know, a positive experience. You know, and like Natasha, who plays Nadia on the show, like we had like a couple minutes to like chat, but again, it's like she's working, you know what I mean? And like she's number 3 and like she's, you know, just trying to hold any kind of energy that she can to like get through the day, because she's there for 17 hours and I'm only there for 2.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so I know what that experience is like. But yeah, the day player stuff, it's like, it's really hard to get a grasp on it. I find like the best parts of being a day player are like getting to know the crew, you know, because like you're working with the makeup ladies or men or, you know, the hair people. And like, that's where the real conversations happen. Because once you're on set, it's kind of just like, stand here, do this, you get 2 takes and you're done. Right. You know? So yeah, outside of, I mean, those are on things that I've booked. Positive experiences I've had on set have been kind of making my own stuff. And feeling really in control of those things. Like my latest short film is coming out next year, and that was like 4 days. We shot it downtown. I was the star, writer, creator, actor, producer, all of those things. And I had an amazing team behind me, and we got like, you know, a bunch of money to make it. And so it felt really supported. And it was a really beautiful experience to go like, wow, all of these people have come together to support this little weird monster in my brain. Right. And now we get to make it. And so I have this kind of like studio experience, and then I have these like independent experiences where I've been the person behind it all. And there was learning to be had on both of them. And I think it's why I keep creating my own stuff and why I'm trying to like make bigger and bigger things, because I want to be able to create the experience that I want to have on set for other people. Which is like, we're all just hanging out and chilling and making something. And there's rigor around it, but it's not a high pressure situation.
Yes. And I think I'm learning that more from talking to people on this podcast, because everybody's like, the ones that I've talked to where I'm like, whoa, you've been on really big sets. Like, tell me, what is that like? And they're like, it's the same. We're all like have the same struggles. We're chasing time, we're chasing money, and we're all just trying to work together to get the thing done, and in the most fun way. Like, it is just still collaborating. Where, as somebody who hasn't worked on a big set, in my head I'm going, damn, they all really know what they're doing. They're all like extremely professional. They are extremely professional, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you just walk on as somebody who hasn't been on a big set. In my mind, I'm going, oh my God, like I'm here and they all know what they're doing very well, and if I fuck up, it's the end of the world. And it's like, no, everyone fucks up. It's
Absolutely.
fine.
Absolutely.
You do another take.
Absolutely.
And it's not as big as a stress in my head.
No.
You know what I mean? As it sounds like in reality.
Well, and the thing is that it's, you know, having the permission to fuck up, having the permission to make a mistake and not realize that you're going to break down the whole system.
Yeah.
I think that's like the nervousness that I felt early on in my career of being like, oh my God, if I'm stepping into this, like, I don't want to like ruin their day. I don't want to be that one.
The director's like, oh, we hired this person.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
It's a nightmare.
More often than not, they're casting you off a tape. They don't know who you are as a person, right? And so it's this thing of being like, I don't want to be the problem that they don't make their day.
Yeah.
But again, it's like it's just hard because when those relationships aren't established, if you don't have a director that comes up to you and goes like, hey, I'm Wayne, it's really nice to meet you, I loved your tape, blah, blah, blah. And like you build that connection and all you're talking to is the second AD. And then they're just like, okay, and we're rolling. It's like, well, of course you're going to feel nervous. Of course you're going to feel like an imposter in those situations, or like, what am I doing? Or you don't have the grace to be able to make a mistake.
When it really doesn't mean anything. Everybody's doing their job.
Exactly. They're all so focused on what they need to do. They're not worried about you.
Exactly. And you're like, oh my God, they didn't tell me good job. So like, I guess that wasn't great.
Yeah.
And like, no, we didn't say anything because we got the take we needed and now we're moving on.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing is, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she was talking about leading a course that's like deprogramming actors.
Ooh.
Which I thought, like, she said it kind of offhandedly, but I was like, ooh, we need to figure out what that would be.
For those who went to school.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's literally that.
But she was talking about, she was like, so many, and she has a recurring role on Murdoch Mysteries, and like she's had a very, fortunate career. And she was like, I think because of that fortune, she's like, I really saw that like set isn't the place where you get to be your artist. It's just not. Like, she's like, unless you're a famous celebrity and you're like, the executive producer of the movie, like, she's like, more often than not, you are a employee and you're coming in to do your job. Again, how to be on set.
Yeah.
Not how to be an artist on set, because people don't have time for you to be an artist. They have time for you to come in and execute the job position that they hired you to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is, in some cases, like indie films or whatever, you can have that room to like really collaborate with the director. But on something like What We Do in the Shadows, which was a really positive experience, they just needed me to come in and say the lines the way I said them in my tape.
Yeah,
they're not here to be like, let's talk about what you need.
Yeah.
They're just like, just say it as you did it on your tape,
Let's try
please.
a different motivation.
Yeah.
Or
and I think that's the common misconception, is that people think like, oh, it's going to be an artistic and creative life working on set all the time. And I'm like, from my experience, it's not a creative or artistic life being on set. It's a job that is in a creative field, is an entertaining field, but it's not necessarily, I don't feel like the times where I felt most like my artist have been on set.
Yeah.
And so I'm also sitting with that in my life of going like, I want to be on the projects where I feel like I get to be an artist. You have more of that
creative freedom.
Whether that's my own or working with people who are interested in that process. And I've been fortunate to work with a few of those people in my life where I'm like, oh, these people are like capital A artists and they are working in film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there is, what is the workplace that needs to be set up? And then what does that workplace allow for room for us to be creative, and go, okay, well, if we know we're only doing 8 hours today, and we're going to spend all those 8 hours on this one scene and we're just going to mess around with it, great. But that requires resources.
Yeah,
or
for
time.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I think that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah. I mean,
because they want to get as many scenes done in a day, which doesn't allow time to go and explore and do and try different things. You're like, no, that's exactly what I wanted in my head. We got it on camera. Boom, done. Next.
Yeah.
And paying 8 hours for one scene to play around with when you could do 2 scenes
or 5.
Yeah. It's like, Yeah.
You know? So it's like the creative part happens in the pre-production, or it's like why you see so many Hollywood
Right.
directors being like, oh, I took this person out for coffee and we just chatted about the character. Because I'm like, that's the only time they're going to get to chat about the character.
Yeah, that's
You know?
true. Yeah. Unless you have like a really big, long monologue, they could really juice. But even then, you're rehearsing. So that's where you're doing you're right. It's not.
Yeah. America Ferrera
fully
went
on
home
set.
and learned her monologue for Barbie.
Yeah.
She didn't get to like try it out on set.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like they were like, okay, America, you ready to go?
Yeah.
It's monologue time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's America
exactly.
Ferrera, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and so it's just those
So
things.
it would be in the rehearsal process and pre-production. Yeah, you're totally right.
You know? And I think that's why it's like, you know, I've really gotten into the director Mike Lee, and like Mike Lee has like huge improvisational, like, you know,
Yes,
like,
I was gonna ask you
rehearsal
if like, so do you
processes.
want to improv on
I
on
mean,
set all day?
no. I feel like I'm like very like I need the script, but like I love the idea of a process that like for Mike Lee's processes in the past, you know, he's talked about kind of like building like, you know, multiple weeks where they're building the script together with the
Okay.
actors, right? So they're improvising, and what's coming out of that character improvisation, he'll slowly start to build the script around. So he's
Oh,
hiring it
that's
based on people
fun.
that he wants to work with, you know? And I think that that's an interesting way, but again, you need to have a lot of money, and Mike Lee comes from a theatrical background.
I was gonna say it's like combining the theater and film together, because you're workshopping and then rehearsing, and then you get up on then
By the
you
time
get
you
it
hit the
up on
set,
its
you know what
feet.
it
Yeah,
is.
and then you're doing it.
Exactly.
Which is, yeah, I would like that too. Have you ever been in a theater experience where there's been like too much rehearsal?
In Canada? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever felt like there's been too much rehearsal. I think more often than not, everyone's flying by the seat of their pants. And I would say I've been in far too many experiences where I'm like, I don't know all the lines yet, and now we have to go
Can
on
we
stage.
have one more rehearsal, please?
Yeah, like, you know, or it's like, oh, we ran that scene once 2 weeks ago, but yeah, it's fine. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, okay. Because again, like, I think coming from a theater background, part of me, the part of what I love to do is be in communion with other people.
Yeah.
Be collaborative and go like, okay, how do we solve this problem? You're solving problems all day in rehearsal.
Yeah.
Because we have the script, we know what we need to do, and then it's just about like,
Exactly.
how do we adjust it to this space?
Yes.
And like, I think that is one of the why I keep doing theater, because it's like I love being in that process of solving the problems.
Yeah.
And creating something together, and then also the joy of being on stage with real people watching you and like listening to you, as opposed to kind of like, yeah, the crew I think is your first audience on a film set, you know, and like they're gonna laugh or enjoy something or like but they're also doing their jobs, right? They can't be so invested in your performance as a theater audience can be.
The move mic.
Yeah, you know, like a theater
Yeah.
audience, their sole purpose is to be there is to observe it.
Yeah.
They're not trying to also do their job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
So there's like a level of focus that I think is only really present in theater from both the audience and the performers, and the level of like heavy collaboration. And so I would love to have an experience one day where we go through this rehearsal process, we rehearse it like a play, you know, and then we get to set, we know exactly what's happening because everything's been planned out based on the
Yeah.
rehearsal process, so that the filming is just the archiving of the project as opposed to the place where we get to explore our artistries.
Yes.
It's like we're all just setting it up so that it's captured so that we can make a film out of it. You know?
Yeah.
But I want to be in a space where it's like, I don't know, let's try stuff out. You know, like let's like, I don't know, what if I do this? What if I do this? Like, what are the options?
Yeah.
Because you don't get that on set very often.
That's true. Hit
You
your
know?
mark, please.
Yeah, hit your mark, say the line, turn here, look, make sure you're there. Okay, you know, this is what this is.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and you're like trying to like, okay, in the rehearsal, you're trying to run it for the first time with your scene partner because you've been
Right.
practicing by yourself for the last week, or, you know, got it the night before, you're doing it in the makeup chair. And I'm like, it's such a process of like, how do you remain calm under pressure? And I think that's the artistry of what I think great film actors have, is like they can make incredible choices on the fly that like bring something to life, but that requires a huge level of like ease and like sense of self-empowerment to go like, if I only got 2 takes, I'm gonna go balls to the, not in
Yeah.
a way that's impacting other people.
Yeah.
But like that makes it feel authentic for them.
100%.
And I think that that's just a harder skill to achieve without practice, without being on set going, well, what if I try this, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard to do that in your room.
Yeah, with no one around.
Yeah.
But your camera.
Yeah.
100%. So your projects that you're working on now, or your project that you mentioned earlier, tell us about it.
Yeah, so my next film coming out is called Fast Love. It's about a young man who gets trafficked at a hotel. And it is like a very personal piece to me, but I've been building the kind of piece of it for like 5 years. It started as like a solo show that I was like kind of going into different residencies with, and then it culminated kind of in this film version with one of my like, you know, big collaborators, Jay Stevens, who just had their film Really Happy Someday at TIFF. And so it was really like a beautiful, Jay and I kind of, our relationship started at the start of that project, and I think it's been really wonderful to kind of like see it kind of come full circle. Nice. So that's going to hit the festival circuit next year, and I'm in post-production on my next short film called Eel, which was shot by Tim Mumbercat, and it's about a kid who turns to illegal eel fishing to support his family in Nova Scotia. And so it's kind of like based on what's happening in Nova Scotia right now with the fishing moratoriums and the violence that's coming about because of them. So I have those two films kind of in post-production that are both mine. And then I'm also we're in post-production on a film with Pearl Harbor, who's a local drag queen. And we're making a TV show around her character. And so we're kind of putting a pilot together, and we've been in post-production for that.
Nice.
And then, I have a couple features coming out that haven't been announced yet. And so, just kind of like doing different things. I've been really, as I said, enjoying making my own stuff and then figuring out how to make things. Because sometimes you get a lump of money to make it, and sometimes you're kind of like scrapping it together. Like Fast Love was completely supported by the Canada Council. And so we had, it was the biggest grant I'd ever received in my life in terms of like my art projects. And so I was really able to go like, let's do everything we can on this.
Yeah.
And then with Eel, we've basically made it for $300.
No way.
And it looks amazing.
That's
like Tim's
awesome.
an incredible DOP, and like, but it was like me, Tim, and our friend Josh, who was like our sound mixer, and the three of us just kind of like wandered around Nova Scotia for 4 days in a truck and like filmed different things. And, I'm applying for more grants to like do the post-production process, but I was like, for us to just kind of make it was like I bought them dinner for 4 days and we kind of just wandered around.
That's amazing.
Because the character's just me. So it's really just like, it was a really great reminder that like you can make really beautiful stuff for not a lot of money.
Yes.
As long as you have 100%. Like the story, the character, the situations, those things. And I felt really strong about going into that I had the story and the character. And so then it was just about having Tim be able to jam with me about how we want to capture it.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I have those things coming up that I'm pretty excited about. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you, especially the ones that like you're like, oh, I have no money, but I want to get it. We're going to do it for as little as possible.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to create a challenge that was like that, of just like film with what you have.
Absolutely.
Like don't go out and get equipment, because my problem is I buy this and this equipment and this equipment and this equipment, and I'm like, okay, now I can film something, and then I go, no, I should probably get this too and this too, and it's like, calm down, just film with what you have.
Oh
like,
yeah, absolutely. Do you know James Clear?
I don't know.
James Clear wrote Atomic Habits.
Oh yes, yeah. I just finished listening to that. Yes, I do know James Clear.
Yes. So one of the things, I was listening to his masterclass actually, and I thought it was so well articulated, where he was like, there's movement and then there's action. And I love this concept of like, I think as human beings, it can feel satisfying for us to have movement, but not necessarily action.
Yes.
And so I think part of that movement is like, well, I'm going to buy all the tools.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
But it's like, you can actually just go out and film something on your phone.
100%.
Yeah. Like my friend Lauren and I, this summer, we filmed like a parody music video, and we just used our friend's like, old vintage kind of like, camcorder.
Nice.
And it looked so great. And I was like, I was suddenly like, this is such a revelation. It's like recording sound. It looks great. And it just like, I can buy one for $20 off of Facebook Marketplace, and I could just be filming stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like our parents did.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so
like,
true,
and there's
yeah.
something really beautiful about the vintage quality of it, and like
Yeah.
the way that it captures light, and like, so I was like, it was a really interesting moment for me where I was like, oh wow, like for $20 I could be filming things in a really cool way all the time, you know, as opposed to the kind of oversaturation of our phones sometimes, you know? Because I find filming on my phone to be a bit like, it's for work, and I don't feel as creatively aligned with my phone as I felt when I like held this camcorder. I was like, oh, this feels cool, because I'm a photographer. Like I take pictures and stuff like that on my like film camera, and I find like that has been really, really helpful for me to be like, oh, the intentionality behind this mechanical device actually kind of opens up my creative mind.
Yeah, there's some film creators who only shoot on film still.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that blows my mind, because like,
it's very expensive.
I was like, back in the day, if you wanted to be an actor with the mentality that we have now of you need to be creating your own stuff, you would have to buy film, you would have to buy the camera. It
was cheap back then though.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, I mean not in the early 2000s, but when like,
that's fair.
You know, in the 80s, that was what everyone used.
Yeah,
like
that's
all the
fair.
shows up until like 98 were all film. And then they crossed over to digital because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
But like now everything's coming back. Like Succession was all shot on film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because people want that. The beauty of film is that it has character.
It really
it's
does.
not so flat.
Yeah. I really don't like the new TVs where you can see every single pore up in HD. I was like, holy.
It looks like you're just watching real life.
Yeah. I'm like,
so weird.
I feel like we've reached peak zoom and peak, like your TV is the size of the wall.
Yeah.
And it's in this super weird new shooting format.
Yeah.
And it's too much.
No.
It's too much.
No.
I like take it back a little bit. Take it back. We don't need these extreme close-ups.
No, I want to watch something and feel like it's outside of me.
Yeah.
I don't want to just feel like I'm watching reality. It's why I've never, like, I watch RuPaul's Drag Race quite a lot, but I think it's because it's the only show that I feel like is a performance competition show that isn't just purely singing. It's like they're doing comedy and like, you know, costume, and like, it just feels like this, like, I really love watching it because I feel like the conversations that the queens have are like conversations that all performers like go through at different points.
100%.
Where I feel like the singing shows, it's more about like how good can you sing?
Yeah, and how sad your story is.
Yeah, but I've never gotten but I've never really gotten into the reality shows that are just like people living.
Yeah, me neither. And partially though is because I would get addicted to it, because their hooks at the end of episodes are always so good, and I'm just such a sucker. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. But I've always, like with the Keeping Up with the Kardashians and stuff like that, I was like, I don't want to watch people live life when I could be going out and living my life.
I agree. I agree.
Literally the thought behind it. I was like, I just can't justify sitting in a room watching someone else live life. Anyway, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, touch on, promote that I missed?
Not really. I feel like, I talked about the projects that I have coming up. You know, Fast Love is the next big thing. And then the features, like I'm in a feature, oh my gosh, what's it called?
When you work so much.
It's called The Players, by Sarah Gailey Davis, and so we're waiting for that to come out. And I had a lot of fun on that shoot. A lot of great people in it. Jessica Glero, who's on Frasier right now, she's in it. You know, a lot of great people, and so looking forward for that to come out. And then my movie Sharp Corner is out. It's doing the festival rounds, and then. I just shot a movie with Richard Gere, which was completely panned.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Critically panned, but Richard was amazing. He was a very nice guy. We got to spend 3 days together, and he was just like such a consummate professional and gentleman and an actor's actor. We had 12 hours for our scene, and he really wanted to just act.
Nice.
And it was, again, a really positive experience to be like, he's like, what can we try? But he was also the executive producer of that film, so he was able to go like, we're going to take all day to do this because I want to.
That's the best. Goals.
Yeah, exactly.
Earlier you mentioned on set of being like, number 5 on the call sheet, and you got to see like everything working in all the politics and press and all that kind of stuff. What is some of the politics that you didn't know before that surprised you?
I mean, yeah, I think the politics of that particular show was I felt people tried to create tension between the actors. Like, there would be certain things, like, for example, I was not invited to things. Because, and I remember confronting the director and being like, why are you not inviting me to these social events that all the other cast members are being invited to? He's like, well, your character's ostracized by everyone. And I was like, but I'm an actor. I can act ostracized. I don't want to be left out of the social, like people going for beers or like going and playing pool or like going to karaoke. I just wasn't invited. So there was like those kind of politics, which I thought was like really strange.
That is weird.
Or like the games.
Because it's like, you don't think I could just turn it on. You have to make me feel this in real life.
Yeah, that there was like, well, just a huge lack of trust. And so, yeah, or the politics of being like hierarchy. I think like hierarchy is something that I always contend with, is that I'm like, I don't think you're better than me. I don't think I'm better than you. I think you have skills that maybe I don't have or that I haven't discovered yet. And I maybe have skills you don't have. So I think it's about the exchange of knowledge as opposed to being like, I'm here and you're there.
Yeah, I'm actually number one on the call sheet, so how about you shut up?
It's like, actually, that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, sure, you negotiated top billing. Amazing, as you should. You're worth that. But I don't think that makes you a better, stronger, you know, that's the thing. It's like, I've met Sandra Oh a couple of times, and like to stand behind her on the red carpet and go, love Sandra. Right. But I'm like, the only difference between her and me right now on this red carpet is that people know who she is and people don't know who I am. But I'm like, her talent is exceptional. And like, she's done things that I don't know if I could do. But, you know, not to compare myself to Sandra Oh, but like, there is that thing of being like, oh, people just don't know me yet. People aren't interested in my story yet because I haven't had the career that Sandra Oh has had. Yeah. But fundamentally, we are doing the same thing. We're both here promoting our films.
Exactly.
We're both standing in the funny green room being like, you know what I mean? Like, so there's the illusion behind it all has really been shattered for me. And then it's really just about like the social games, what kind of like old school hierarchy you're playing into. And I think I have always had a hard time with that because I'm like, can't we just all be friends? And like, can't we just all like make the work? Like, why do I have to play this game of, you know, you're smart, I'm dumb, you're smart. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, can't we just be all like, we all just want to get paid and do the thing that we like to do. Yeah,
100%,
like,
100%.
Yeah.
And as a day player, what is some tips or tricks for like coming onto a show like What We Do in the Shadows, or, you know, at a show that already is an oiled machine? What are some tips and tricks to joining a show for a day? And
yeah, I would say like try to rehearse with someone before you get there. Like, I mean, what was great about What We Do in the Shadows is like I did get to ask my scene partner before we went in. Like, I was like, can we just like run the lines like a few times so that when you do get to set, you are not the reason that things are maybe slowing down.
Right.
I think like the more seamless you can be and like have a choice and make that choice and try to be as like sociable and generous and honest and nice as possible. I think that'll just make it easy for everyone. I mean, like, say thank you to everyone. You know, we don't know. I think advice generally is like, we don't know where people are coming from or where they're going. Yeah. And so like, just try to be as nice as possible, and realize that it's really not about you. Yeah. Like, it can be really like, oh my God, I'm the day player, like amazing. It's like, I'm really important to the storyline, and it's like, but you're not. Like, Kathy Bates is more important. Yeah, right. You know, like, exactly. I think there's those things of it being like, you know, or the XYZ, you know, is technically more important because they have more to do that day. Yeah. You know, like they have more going on in their brain. They have more that they're contending with. And, but yeah, I've been very fortunate that a lot of the celebrities that I've worked with have been like very wonderful people who are really try to make it as like chill as possible. Yeah. And like, if they have a scene with you, to be like, hey, how are you? How's it going? And I think that's something that I've always tried to carry forward, is like, how can I be my own version of that star in these kind of positions? Yeah, you know, for sure. Which is just walking around very grateful. Nice. And prepared. And prepared. Yes. And very prepared. Yes. 100%. Yeah. Have you ever had a really embarrassing audition or day on set where you're like, oh my God, I'll never do that again? I think like I've had some really intense auditions where I've been like extremely hard on myself, like, you know, just kind of like shit the bed in front of everyone. You know, like I've had auditions where I've had to like start over multiple times, and you can see the director just being like, oh my God, when is
Isn't
this
that the
kid-"
worst? You're like, I'm sorry.
It's like, I'm just so nervous.
Like, I swear to God, I'm better than this.
You know, I just want this. I just like love this character so much. You know, I think, but I've also been like really straight shooting. Like I remember auditioning for like a very well-known casting director in the city, and he's been a huge supporter of me. But I remember early on they were auditioning for this like superhero show, and I loved that show growing up. And so when they were doing the live action, I was like, I need to be in this. And my agent was like, we'll get you an audition. Don't worry, blah, blah. I remember going in and like I had prepared for it, and I was like doing all this stuff. And, you know, I did my take, and the casting director was like, okay, great. And I was like, no notes? You don't have any notes? Like, you don't have any notes? And he was like, well, I here's some notes. And then I like did the thing, and he was like, I mean, it's great work, Wayne. Like, he's like, you do great work. And I was like, yeah, but I'm like, so like that's it? Like, you're not like, there's like, I'm like, this is it. This is the thing that I've been like working, you know? And he was like, there's things involved. Like, he's like, this has already been cast in LA. We're doing that. Like, we have to audition people for ACTRA guidelines. Like, it's like, you're great, but it's already been cast, you know? So like, you know, but I was using it as I'm like, well, let's work with me. Like, let's work with it. And he's like, this is not, unfortunately, the time where we get to kind of like work on a character with you, you know? Like, he's like, I have to see other people, and like, ultimately these people are not getting the role because it's already been cast.
Yeah.
And it was this like those honest moments of me feeling like, maybe I have a shot at this, and then realizing that I really don't. Not because I'm not talented, but because there's politics involved, you know? Yeah, I think it's been like hard. I've had casting directors be really hard on me in the room, which I think a lot of those people are being phased out, but like an old school mentality of like, why is your hair like this? Or you shouldn't have piercings in if you're auditioning for a, you know, this thing. And being like, I remember my agent going to bat for me one day where she was like, you know, earrings can be taken out, hair can be cut, this can be done. She's like, have some fucking imagination. These people are coming in and doing their fucking job.
Right?
Like, I'm sorry you didn't have your goddamn coffee in the morning. Like, it's these things where people just treat you like dirt because you're an actor. And actors are a dime a dozen. But I'm like, for the most part, these people want to do this because they love it, you know, or they enjoy performing for people.
Yeah.
And it's really, I've found as time goes on, I try to be really, really delicate with anything I'm auditioning people for because it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know? And and I feel like as I'm entering into more rooms, I'm being really explicit about what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do.
That's nice.
You know, I had an audition for Lion King, like I got pretty far in the Lion King process. And the producers from New York they didn't even really let me do what they'd asked me to prepare 17 pages of material.
Sheesh.
I had 4 songs, 4 sides. They were seeing me for an alternate of all these different characters.
Wow.
And Stephanie Gordon was casting it here in Toronto, and she's lovely, and we have a great relationship. But once the New York producers came in, they were just kind of bulldogs, and it was like this thing where I went in with my idea of what I thought these characters were, and they just didn't like them. They were like, that's not the character. And I was like, oh, okay, because they wanted you to be what's already on Broadway.
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't have access to those things. I can't go watch the Broadway show. If you wanted me to be that character, then you should have sent me a video of what you're looking for.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, I'm coming in giving you my interpretation
we know
of
you
this
have a
character.
tape. So you could have sent a tape.
Exactly. And so it was this funny thing where they asked me to read for this character that I hadn't prepared and I didn't really identify with. And I was like, I just don't really identify with that character. And they're like, well, can you read for it? And I was like, I can, but I think it's a waste of both of our times because I'm not interested in that character.
Good for
and they're
you.
like, well, I think you should still read for it. So I read for it, but I like barely read for it. I was like, okay. And then I was like, cool, great. Anything else for me? Great. Thank you so much. You know what I mean? Like I was like, these are the characters that I wanted to audition for. And those are the ones that I put my time and energy into. And you didn't give me the time to show you what I wanted because you immediately shut me down. And now you're asking me to read for something that I have not prepared.
Right.
You're asking me to cold read, sing, and do the sides for a character that I haven't prepared for because you're trying to, I don't know what.
Just copy and paste.
Production
from there to here.
Or like solve a problem that I'm not the solution to.
But also, like, they could have also given you notes of like, oh, that's not what we're looking for in that character. Can you do it more like this? Like, instead of being like, whole new character now. Yeah. So there's like those things, which I think is complicated. But yeah, I've started to advocate for myself pretty hard in the rooms because I'm about dignity. Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to have dignity as an actor. I'm not interested in just saying yes for the sake of saying yes.
Yeah.
I'm interested in going in and being seen as someone who can contribute, as a collaborator.
100%.
Not just, another person, another body, another number, another name on a sheet. I'm coming in and going, this is what I could do for you.
Yeah.
And I think some people are open to that and some people aren't. Some people just need you to come in and be exactly what they envisioned in their mind. And that's okay. That's not the work that I'm interested in.
Yeah, exactly. It's just finding the people that you click with and collaborate with. And that's the entire audition process.
Yeah. And you have people that really vouch for you.
Yeah.
And, like Stephanie really vouches for me. And it was just like not the right person to receive me after she brought me forward.
Right. Who is your agent, by the way? You should shout out the agent.
Yeah. Karen Williams Possible at the Characters. She's been a huge supporter of me for a long time, and we have a really great relationship, and I really love her. And she's really seen me through a lot of just frustrations and turmoil, and she's really been there. And so
nice.
I'm
Well,
very
it sounds
grateful.
like she's really in your corner, especially with the earrings can be taken out, hair can be cut.
Yeah, no, she's a bulldog, and
I love that.
she's one of the best in the city, I think, and very grateful to be with her.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right about advocating for yourself, 100%. And I think it's some kind of changing, where it used to be like if you're advocating yourself, then you were automatically a diva or a prima donna or whatever. And it's now, so then we've switched right into people pleasing. I'll be whatever you want me to be. And then I feel just like as we age, we're like, actually, you know what? No, I'm going to be like me. And if it works, it doesn't. If it does, it does,
Well, because realistically, I come from a working class background. If I need to go work at McDonald's, I will.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lower myself to be in a situation where people treat me like crap in the thing that I love to do.
Yeah.
If I want to go be treated like crap, I'll go work at Shoppers Drug Mart.
Yeah.
Or fucking McDonald's.
Yeah.
And not to say that those people deserve to be treated like crap. They don't.
No, but it happens.
But
we all
I'm
know.
like, you know what I
Retail,
mean?
hospitality.
Like, it's like, the Tim Hortons in Parkdale's a community center.
Yeah.
They're not just working Tim Hortons. You know what I mean? Like, they are dealing with a lot of shit that comes through there.
Right.
And I'm like, if I wanted to deal with asshole people, I would go work at one of those places.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I will, and I have at many points in time in my career when I wasn't making ends meet. But it's like at this particular juncture, I'm like, if I'm going to go in and audition for this big ass show and be treated poorly, well, no, I'm sorry, no.
Yeah.
Not worth it for me.
Yeah, good for you.
Not worth it.
That's awesome.
But, that comes with sacrifices.
Sacrifices and time and knowledge. Like, I feel like it is, especially early on in the career, it is like, I'll do anything. I'll do it. Yes. We're going to be in the snow for 14 hours. Sounds great.
Yeah. But what's funny is, I think reflecting on this, Allison, I think it's like, I think if I was to go back and speak to myself, it would have been like, focus on the relationships that you have with people.
Yeah.
Don't focus on building the resume. Focus on the relationships that you have.
Oh, I like that.
Because I think the relationships are what have seen me through.
Yeah, 100%. Because, well, I mean, especially because you collaborate on your own projects with all these great talented people.
Yes.
That are doing things in TIFF and getting shit done, which are hard people to come by sometimes.
Absolutely. Because I would say like, sure, I've worked a lot of gigs to like be like, I'm working as an actor and I made money doing this. But I'm like, I didn't feel great about it. It was just like, okay, it's like it's going in and doing a XYZ job. It's like temp work, you know? And I'm like, I would feel more proud of my legacy as an actor by going, I worked on things that I felt seen on and I felt cared for. And again, I don't think, maybe I won't have a huge, long IMDb list when I'm 90 years old, but I hope to be able to look back and go, each one of those projects that I worked on, whether they were mine or someone else's, I felt valued in.
Yeah.
Or I felt special to be a part of.
Or I grew on them, or I got to fully explore, me and my artistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've also never had the privilege of being a working actor in the sense of like, I have offers coming to me all the time and I'm just like, there's I won't digress much further, but like there's a mentor of mine and we saw a movie together and I was like, what do you think about legacy? And like, can you look back at your career and be like all of those things? He's like, no, Wayne. He's like, I have a kid and a house. He's like, I'm going to take whatever job I can get. And I'm like, oh, well, I've never been in that situation where I have offers coming to me, you know, or I'm a name where people are just like, do you want to be in this Hallmark movie? You know, I'm
yes,
like,
please. No.
yeah, you know, and I have friends who it's like they make a killing doing Hallmark movies, and I don't think there's any shame to it. But I don't know if I would have the, I don't know if I could.
How do we say this without not getting hired by Hallmark?
I don't know if I could put that creative person in the backseat.
Yeah, I think it's how I feel about people who just do commercials, and that's how they make their bread and butter, and they're happy just doing commercials. Absolutely. I love that for you. I don't think I can do it. No. I know I wouldn't be able to do it.
Or I'd take my commercial money and make my own work.
Yeah, exactly. Like that would be fucking great.
Yeah.
Commercials are good. Please hire me. But I wouldn't be able to just be like, well, I'm an actor and I only do commercials and now I am satisfied. I was like, no, I would have to be making my own stuff or doing little indie projects with other people, stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that's why it goes back to the relationships for me. It's not about shitting on this style of project or that. It's going, well, what are the relationships that I'm either gaining or building by being in that project?
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
But yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe in 6 months' time when I have no money, I'll be like, I'll take whatever you can. Please hire me. I'll take
3 Hallmarks.
Absolutely. But I'm like, right now, I'm like, okay, I will work my little part-time jobs and, you know, make the work that I want to make, and that feels good enough for me.
My last question for you is, if you could give this chapter in your life a title, what would you title this chapter in your life?
Oh, God. What would I title? Like the chapter that's beginning or the chapter that just closed?
Ooh, can we do both?
Yeah, okay. I would say chapter that is ending is probably... I just want to be like, spiral.
I was going to say, I was like, for some reason, I was just like, the shit storm.
Yeah. You know, existential spiral.
But that's just speaking for myself.
And then I think the new chapter is probably like, I'm an Aries. So I'm all about like destruction and renewal.
Nice.
So I would say that I feel very much in a place of like renewal.
Nice.
Of like, I think I'm like, you know,
Phoenix rising.
Cycles. Do you know what I mean? Like 10 years ago, like this is my 10th year in Toronto.
Okay.
I feel like I'm really reflecting on a lot of what's happened over the last decade and like how I'm heading into this next kind of period of going, okay, what did I learn? How can I tap back into like what I love about all of this? And how can I come at it with like new but informed eyes?
Nice. I like that. That's awesome.
So spiral, existential spiral, renewal.
We love renewal.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. I'm so glad that we could finally do this.
Finally.
Yeah, it was so worth the wait.
Yeah. You know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast as much as I did. I have so much fun doing these podcasts, and I so love that you guys watch them. If you did like this episode, please hit like, comment below your favorite part, and be sure to subscribe. See you in the next interview.